Let's get started. So, those of you who are joining it for the first time, I'm just going to set the background. So, every month we have this kind of call wherein we talk about the new features that we have rolled out in this particular month. We also record this. So, those of you who were not able to make it, we can share the recording as well. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to then talk about the new features that we have rolled out in the month of March. Number one feature that we have rolled out, in fact, last week itself, that is custom field for the clients. So, what I mean by that is that now on this client list, if you want to add some more custom fields, you should be able to do that. So to give you some examples, like I have added this custom field called client type, where let's say you wanted to assign some sort of categories to your client list, like this is my tier one client or tier two client, or however you like, you can actually do that. And then, I mean, I have added some more columns, not added, but let me just show that how I can add some more properties here. So when you click on setting icon, there is a new setting introduced. It's called client properties. And in here, you should be able to create the new custom field. So when you click on new, you can type the field name. And then here you have different options, like what kind of custom field that you wanted to add here. Let's say you wanted to add a field called preparer or reviewer, or you wanted to kind of assign some sort of point of contact, then you can even do that. And then here you have different field type that you can choose as well, right? So that way you can say I wanted to select the drop down, and then here you can kind of give some sort of options, right? Whatever options that you select will eventually show up on that drop down value. So for example, the client type field that I was showing it to you, when you click here on edit, these were the different options that I have added that was showing up on a client list, right? So the main purpose of having these columns is that if at all you wanted to track any additional information for your client, then you should be able to do that. It could be a drop down field. And the good thing about this is that it's easily changeable, right? Tier 1 and this is tier 2 or whatever. So you can basically select those fields right from here as well. So that was one major feature that we have released this last week, where you can just now add custom columns on this client list. Second thing we have actually improved here is the filter screen here, like the filter panel. So now you have these filter columns up front where you can quickly, easily filter your client list by different parameters. So in this case, you can quickly filter it by managers. You can kind of look at the status for any particular close. So let's say you wanted to find out uh, the close status for Fab. You can just simply select the month and then apply it. You can now see the close status for Fab for all the clients. So we basically, it was already there. In a way, we just revamped it. So now it's a front filter that you can kind of quickly access it. That's another thing. The third thing that we have done here is that when you put your mouse on any of those columns, you're going to see these horizontal lines. And when you click on that, you can also decide which columns you want to see, which columns you don't want to see. So let's say you think that, hey, I don't really care about client questions or to do, or let's say the close note, right? That way you can now hide those columns from here, right? So you can even decide that. You can now also change the order of columns. So let's say you wanted to have this client type right next to the client name, you can even do that as well, right? So you can even play around with the column sequence as well. Okay, so these were some of the changes that we did with the columns as well. Now we did also make some improvements with the views. So what's gonna happen here is that, see, I do now have different, I mean, these views were already there, but now what happens is that you can now make the view as default for you. So every time, let's say you log into Xenett, you will land in the view that you created as default, right? So in this view, you can apply some different filters and then you can just say, hey, mark as default, right? So all clients is a default Xenett view. I mean, you will not be able to make as such any changes here in this view, right? Because that's a default for everyone. But let's say you wanted to create your own custom view, like let's say, let me just show you. So plus you wanted to say uh, Hardik view, for example, I'm just, and then I either you can create a practice view that will be visible to all, or you can just create a my view that is specific to you. By the way, the feature that I'm showing you right now, all this create new view, I mean, was already there. I'm now gonna explain you the use case for this. So let's say if you wanted to have your own view that you always want to land whenever you log into Xenett, this is how it's gonna work. So I'm gonna say my view and then I'm gonna click on save. Right. So now it says Hardik view. I can now make whatever changes that I like. Let's say I wanted to hide this client questions to do, and then I wanted to, let's say, put the client type here, whatever changes that I like. Let's say I wanted to apply some further filters here, and then I click here on update view. So whenever I click here on update view, and then if I click here and mark as default, so let's say if I navigate to different module, when I come back, right, it's gonna land me in that specific view with my applied settings only. So that way, it's gonna be very, very handy for you guys. So you can actually make whatever changes that you like, create the new view, and then you will always land here. All right, so that were some of the features that we have added along with enabling custom fields for the client properties. Now, some of these settings, like especially adding the new custom fields or even changing it from here, it's not like all the users can do it. Right now, it can only be done by the admin users. The staff users will not be able to add any new custom fields as well as they'll not be able to update it. That's how it works at this point. All right, so that way, I mean, this is how the client properties or custom fields will work. So that's number one. A second feature that we have rolled out was the time tracking. So when you go to settings, when you go to time tracking, by default, it's not enabled. You, if you wanted to track time using Xenett, then you can enable this, like time tracking, and then the time estimate, and then you will now start seeing those options. So let's say once you enable this, and then let's say if you go to any of the task, you will now be able to see the column here for time tracking, right? We do have an estimate task. So let's say if there are any such task where you expect some budget, like you already know that, hey, this particular task gonna take you 2 hours, then you can type in 2 hours, and then I mean, you can then track the actual time with the estimate as well, right? So this is where you just simply click on it and you can just either you can write like 2 hours in that way, let's say, or you can type in like this 120 minute m, and then it's gonna also change it like however you like. You can enter that information. If you then wanted to track the time, you just simply come here and start the timer, and the timer will be started, right? So as you navigate to different screen, like as you can see, the timer will also show up on the top. When you put your mouse on that, you will be able to see the client name, the task name, your time is being tracked. So if you navigate to different modules, the time will continue to track, right? When you are done with that, like let's say once you are done with the task, you just simply click here on on stop timer, and the time will be captured. So let's say when you click on the task name, you can now see the actual estimate was 2 hours. The actual timer, the time track was this. And if you then wanted to make some changes, then you can also do that as well. I mean, if you like, right? So those are some of the things that, so you can even see the log as well, like who has tracked the time, who has actually reported the time tracking and all those things. If you wanted to override that, you can even do that, like when you click here on settings, sorry, edit. So you can see the Hardik Mehta has tracked 25 seconds on March 28th. So that's how you can even look at the history as well of the time log. If you wanted to edit something, I mean, you can also do that, right? So that's like a way to track time. Um, so we also have a reports, like when you click on reports, there's a time log where you can even look at the whole history of the time. So this is the user start date, I mean start time, end time, the client name, folder name, task name, all of the task, right? I mean everything related to that particular time, you will be able to see it here, right? So and you can export it into Excel as well. So those are some of the features that we have released with the time log. The time tracking is also available with the close to do. So it's not just with the to do, but if you are on close, and then if you wanted to track time with the close to do, you can even do that as well. All right. So that's like another big feature that we have rolled out with Xenett. The third thing is the personalization. So which is more like adding your own favorite color in which you would like to access Zenit. So when you click here on your name, you click here on themes. So now you have a light mode and the dark mode. And even under that, you can choose like, hey, I let's say I wanted to select this color or that color. So whatever color that you like, you can then use it like Zenit in your favorite theme and the color as well, right? Now this is specific to you. Like, I mean, if you make some changes, the other users, it's not for everyone. And that's why when you click on your profile icon, themes, that's more for you individually. It's not gonna impact other users as well, right? So that's more like a themes personalization that we have added. Uh, we have been working constantly on improving some of our experience, the design to make it more prominent. So we have also made some changes with little bit with the design. So when we click on, let's say the close, now the close mode look, I mean, the whole header here, the close status, the progress bar, even the way the task, the close to dos are displayed looks little different. So that's like another thing that we have. I mean, it's not really about the features, but it's more to improve the overall experience. So that's another thing that we have done with that as well. All right. So now another thing that we have done, let me just show you templates. All right. So with the template previously, the bulk action, I mean, were not available. So let's say, I mean, it was not possible to select multiple to-dos and then apply or take the bulk action. So now you have different options where you can either delete them or move them from one folder to another. You can enable preparer, I mean, enable preparer and reviewer as well. So that's an option that is available to you. Another thing that we have done is inline edit. Now, what I mean by inline edit is that previously, if you wanted to make any changes, you have to click here and then make changes inside the pop-up to, like, let's say you wanted to change the recurrence from one time to every close to year and month. You always had to click on it. You would then make the changes here and then click on save, and that is how it was working. But now you can just make those changes right from here. So you just simply click on it and say that, hey, this should be one time, or this should be year and month, right? So you just kind of saves some clicks. Okay, you can just say, hey, I want reviewer for this task, I want preparer for this task. So those selections as well, previously it was not that easy. Like, as I told you, you had to click on it and then come here and then click on it, right? So now you can just do it from upfront. itself. Okay, so that was another some improvements that we have done with the templates as well, right? So that is that. Let me just quickly look at my list showing client suggestions in the result tab. Okay, so some of you have requested this. So here is what was happening. Those of you who are using a client portal, what happens is that whenever your client response, let me just open up that. Okay, so these are different suggestions provided by the client. Okay, now the moment when I accept these suggestions here, let's say if I click here on any of the suggestions, let's say office supplies, now this transactions is updated for office supplies, right? The suggestion is kind of gone. So then when we go to resolve tab, I mean, then it was because we were not like showing up that suggestions, right? Especially I'm talking about on a client side, right? It was not possible for client to see what they actually responded, right? So now on client's end, like I'm talking about on client user end, when they go back to their resolve tab, the responded tab, previously it was overriding this account with like it would remove the suggestion and it would then show the actual account that is changed or that is updated. But now we will now continue to show up the suggestions provided by the client, so we always have a track to see like what client responded, so there is no confusion afterwards. So this is something that we have also changed it with the client portal as well, right? So that's another change that we have done. All right. So I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, one more thing I actually forgot to change is with the settings, with the templates, with the to do. Um, it now say previously the like setting up recurrence wasn't possible at the template level. So by the way, we also added this button like collapse expand, so you can now see the whole template. So by previously, it was not possible to set the recurrence at the template level, right? So it was only possible to create the task, and then for every single client for which you import this task, you had to set the recurrence separately. But now let's say if there are certain tasks and you kind of typically follow the same recurrence style, then you can set the recurrence. Excuse me, then you can set the recurrence at the template level. So then when you copy the template to the client, it will then import the task with exact same recurrence. So to give you an example, let's say you have a task to record uh, bank bank transactions from the bank feed, and you typically do, let's say, every Tuesday. So what you could do, you can then come here, recurrent, set the recurrence and say, hey, weekly every Tuesday, right? And then save it. So what's going to happen? Wherever you import this template, it will import the task along with this set recurrence, right? So that way you don't have to set the recurrence manually for every single client. So that's another feature that we have added with the to do module as well. Okay. So that's pretty much it, guys. We are right now working on some of the cool stuff. I'm actually gonna, I mean, like, gonna give you guys heads up in early next week, like what's coming up through a video. Some of the changes certainly will be exciting. So I'm gonna actually explain that with the designs once I have it ready. So most likely I'm gonna shoot you an email to all our users so that you guys know what's coming up. Okay. So that's pretty much it for today's update, guys. I'm just gonna look at the chat real quick just to see if there are any such questions that are waiting for me. One second. Yes, Erin. So this is just to kind of answer your questions about uh, the more like in capacity. I mean, yes, it's just the basic requirement that we have released right now, which is more about tracking the time. But yes, we will keep adding more and more features to that, and this is also on our roadmap for sure. So, all right, anyone has any questions, guys? We actually got some request from many of our customers to have some sort of, so this is more like a monthly updates. This is not like a training as such, but many of the users have requested us that we should have more like a refresher training, which we actually used to have before. So we will be actually gonna start having a separate training session, more like a refresher training, where we can talk about obviously the new stuff, but then it's gonna be very very detailed training. So you guys can then invite your staff, your people to join that meeting, especially the new joinees, if you have anyone, so that they can participate into that training, and then they can kind of, you guys can actually bring them up to speed. So you don't have to spend as such any separate time to train. I mean, you can just have them join that training. So we will make the announcement for that very soon, but I just thought to give you guys heads up on that. All right, guys. That's looks like that's pretty much it. I don't see any questions for me as such for now. So we'll soon connect very soon. And then yes, look forward to the video that I plan to share next week. And then yes, you guys would know like what other exciting things that we are working on. Thank you guys. Bye. Take care, and you have a good one.